Hey everyone, welcome back to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. This week we are continuing on with interviewing first year teachers who just completed their first year of teaching. Today I have a teacher who has her degree in art education, which is actually super fascinating, and I absolutely can't wait to tell you more about it. However, this past year she was actually teaching second grade, which isn't quite what she expected, but she still had a great year nonetheless. So I can't wait for you to get to know her more inside of today's episode.
Welcome to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. Whether you're a first-year teacher, veteran teacher, or just a mom trying to gain some new insights, you are right where you are meant to be. Kayla Durkin, founder of the Blossoming Teacher course, is passionate about helping new teachers blossom into the teacher they were born to be. Kayla wants to help inspire teachers to be their best self, whether that means sharing about personal or professional development, self-care, or the latest and most effective teaching strategies. Through this podcast, you will hear from real teachers sharing their stories about teaching, all with one main goal in mind: to be able to make an impact and help other teachers blossom. And with that, here is your host, Kayla Durkin.
Alrighty, friends, welcome back. I'm so excited for you to get to know Sam. So here we go. Hey, Sam, how are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, absolutely. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I went to Pratt Institute for Art and Design Education. So I have a very strong background in art teaching. So I currently am going to Teachers College at Columbia, doing my master's in art education as well, finishing that up this year while full-time teaching. As Kayla had said, I currently just finished my first year teaching second grade, which definitely was not what I expected, as you mentioned. I was working with trying to get my license switched over from New York City to New Jersey, where I moved after COVID. As you would expect for the Department of Education during COVID, it was a little bit delayed, but I luckily was able to find a position co-teaching second grade in a private school. So I definitely still had a wonderful school year during all of this and got my feet wet and enjoyed my first year in the classroom.
That's really cool. So just hearing your introduction, Sam, I have a couple different questions for you, but we will start with this. Tell me, why are you moving?
So I spent the last 4 years in Brooklyn, New York. I got my degree there. I got my teaching certification there. And when COVID hit, I was in the middle of my senior year of college. So with that and all of the craziness that happened, I ended up moving back in with my family. I moved back in with my grandparents who were going through their own thing during COVID. And I was able to really be the help that I could be where I needed to be in that minute. Once I was here, I kind of set my feet down here again. My partner works for New Jersey Transit, so he has his stable job here. I finally got my license switched, and now I've kind of just set myself back up here, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about trying to get your licensure in New Jersey.
Oh my goodness, it was such a crazy experience. It was really, honestly, super crazy to try to make it to get it back from New York to New Jersey. When I applied for licensure in New York, I fully knew that I was able to get reciprocity in New Jersey. A lot of states have that, where with certain states you can get reciprocity for your license just with a little bit of paperwork. But when I moved, for some reason, I just had the hardest time with paperwork. Luckily, with a few quick phone calls to the DOE, they were very helpful with getting me the right paperwork, getting me in touch with the right people, that eventually all of the paperwork got to where it was supposed to go. And I had the license in my hands in around December after applying to it in about July.
Oh my gosh, so almost a 6 months wait.
Truly, I was halfway through my first year of teaching second grade when I finally had my art license in my hand. And I was like, oh, now I can apply to art teaching jobs. But I was so happy at my school that there was no way I was leaving my kids halfway through my first year.
Oh, absolutely. And so are you licensed in both New York and New Jersey now?
Yes, which is a beautiful thing. When I was applying to new jobs for next year, I could just apply and send them out and see what stuck, which was really helpful.
So I also find it interesting how some schools let you out of your contract, whereas others do not. So in New Jersey, you said private school, right?
Yes.
So at the private school that you were working at this past year, if you wanted to get let out of your contract, could you, or how does that work there?
The private school, yes, I could have gotten out of the contract if I really wanted to. My principal also knew from the get-go that I would only be at the school for 1 year. I When I interviewed, I told him, I was like, listen, I'm very excited to be teaching second grade, but I am an artist by trade. I am an art teacher. That is what I will be doing when my license comes through. So I was luckily that I had a very strong relationship with my administration and was very transparent with them from the beginning of like what I wanted out of the position. So I feel like if I had decided to move on to another school halfway through the year, they would have understood and I would have been able to get out of that contract. But I couldn't leave the kids and I couldn't force myself with that separation halfway through. There was no way that it was going to happen.
That is, it's honestly, it's just really interesting because here in North Dakota, that's like unheard of. You sign a contract and you are stuck in that contract. I mean, it costs thousands of dollars to get out of your teaching contract. And if you leave before the year is up, not only do you have to pay in, but you also have to pay for the sub every day that you're gone until they find someone to replace you.
That's insane. I can't speak to the New Jersey public schools. As I will be going into public school next year, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, it's actually just kind of crazy. Okay, so let's talk about second grade. You weren't obviously hoping to teach second grade, I'm assuming, but when you started applying, were you just open to anything or how did that kind of happen?
It actually happened in a really organic, wonderful way. So when I was here with COVID, I moved back in March. I got a summer camp job over the summer, was happy at a summer camp, but I was looking for a full-time job. All of my graduate classes were going to be online. So I was like, all right, well, I need to find something to do with my time and like make money while I'm here. And my aunt actually works at the school. And when they were looking for a second grade co-teacher, she was like, hey, I know this girl who has her degree in education and isn't doing anything. So through her, I actually ended up interviewing and getting the position through that. So that was really a crazy twist of fate that got me to where I was.
That's amazing. I love that. And so when you were getting ready for this school year to start, how did you feel? Did you feel prepared to teach second grade?
Absolutely not. Like, not at all. I kind of went in with a blank slate. Luckily, the school had a co-teaching model, so I didn't really have to prepare that much besides just looking over her set curriculum. So
Okay.
she, as a master teacher, she's been teaching for over 25 years
Wow.
and is very set in her ways. So she was like, "Great, I have a new co-teacher. You're gonna come along with me for the ride, and we'll figure out all the COVID stuff as we go." So I was terrified going in. I was like, I don't know how to be a general ed teacher, much less do I know how to teach second grade. I know I love the age group, so we'll go from there. But it was definitely terrifying walking in those first week of teacher prep, being like not prepared at all to what it was going to happen.
So how did you figure out like your classroom management and things like that?
So I did come off of a year of student teaching. I did student teaching in an elementary school as well as a high school. So when it came to my teaching strategies and my classroom management, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted. I knew that how it worked best for me was creating really strong relationships with my kids. That was always how I found that they listened to me the best, they learned the best, is when they enjoyed being around their teacher. So coming into the classroom, that was my jumping off point, and then I kind of picked up more and left some as I went through. It was interesting because I always felt like the way that I was supposed to teach was very much in a way of creating the relationships, and it is in a lot of ways it is creating very strong relationships with our students and getting to know them as a full person. I have learned so many things about my students that I would never imagine that I would know about them, from like who they're crushing on to like who they want to sit with at lunch and what's going on in the other grades. But I learned that, so I kind of, like I said, picked up some and left it as I went. I still really value having strong relationships with my students, and that is a very big part of my teaching practice. But along the same lines is I had to learn how to balance on that line of being close to my students and spending time talking and learning about them and them talking and learning about me, to buckling down, getting down to business and not taking, I want to just chat right now as an answer. that's something that I love to do in the art room because we have time when they're independent working that I can chat and get to know them on a one-on-one basis. But when you're in a general ed classroom, you don't have as much time for that, which is kind of nice because you have to do it more intentionally. But I learned about really having to find that balance of getting down to business and really getting to know my students.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's really important to be able to find a balance, and that's really what it's all about. There are so many different responsibilities that teachers have throughout the day, from teaching the curriculum to building their relationships with their students to really just managing everything that's going on throughout the day. So if you can find that balance between we're going to take some time to get to know each other and to chat with each other, but okay, now we do need to buckle down and get to work. I think that really creates the best of both worlds in a classroom.
Oh, and even after my first year of teaching, I'm like, I still don't really know how to do that. So I think it's something that I've started to learn how to do, but will continue to only get better throughout my teaching practice.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we haven't talked about going forward yet, what next year is going to look like for you, but I think the skills that you're learning right now with your second graders, they're also going to be skills that are going to carry through as an art teacher.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so now I have to ask you, with these second graders that you had this year, what were some of your favorite things that happened?
Ooh, some of my favorite things. I talked about it a little bit, but I really enjoyed getting to know my students. They were some of the most lovely second graders I have ever met, and they really took to me very quickly, and I took to them very quickly. And my co-teacher loved to flaunt the fact that I was an art teacher. I'm an artist. So we would spend indoor recesses doing draw-alongs together, and we would sit and make art together. By the end of the year, the whole wall next to my desk was covered in student artwork. And some of my favorite memories is just these days where we would sit during indoor recess. It'd be storming or snowing or whatever it was outside, and we'd be inside and just making art with them and hearing about what they find interesting and what they are really into as second graders. Another thing I really loved this year was that I got to be the one that took them out to recess every day. So taking them out to recess, I got to see them run around and have fun like kids. After a year of COVID of being inside, like to see them interacting with each other on the playground and having a great time. I would always sit at this one table in front of the jungle gym and watch. And depending on the day, usually I had 2 or 3 kids, maybe 4. They would usually switch out that would just sit down and ask me things. They'd be like, Miss Sam, why is the tree green? Or like, Miss Sam, are you married? Or, random things that just whatever decided to come to their head. And it almost turned into Miss Sam's discussion table where we would just sit and we would just talk about whatever we felt like talking about that day. Never anything really heavy, just second grade things that they liked. And it was honestly some of the best times that I had getting to know my students. And it was nice to have like that organic time to just see what they do when they have their own time to do what they want.
So there are 2 things I really love that you mentioned. First thing is giving your students a space to hang up their artwork and giving them time to actually work on that artwork. That is seriously so important, because when you are taking time to find out what your students are interested in, especially when they have an opportunity to be creative like that and kind of let out some of their emotions in their artwork, I think you really do get to know them on such a deeper level. Especially for teachers like me who are horrible at art. And anytime I wanted to do like a directive drawing, I had to pull it up on YouTube because I have no art skills whatsoever. But the other thing that I really love that you mentioned is that with recess time, you said you get to go out to recess with them. And I think that's huge when we have I get to do this mindset instead of I have to do this mindset. If we have to go to recess duty and we have to go to lunch duty, it just becomes such a negative thing. Whereas you took the opportunity for recess, which is a time that you are essentially losing time getting things done inside your classroom that you need to do. But instead you looked at it like, well, I get to go outside with my kids, so I'm going to make the most of this time that I have with them. And you turned that time into a time where they could sit down and you could get to know them. And I seriously think that's so amazing. So kudos to you. Way to go, Miss Sam.
Thank you. Like I said, it was some of the best conversations. We had a very long conversation about Amelia Earhart and her disappearance during one of those discussions. That was one of those teacher moments where you have to like try to figure out if you are going to talk more about it or kind of figure out what they know and not go too far with the conspiracy theories, for lack of better words. But they got into a very heated discussion about somebody had seen on the news that they may have found remains or they found her plane. And another one had done Amelia Earhart for a biography report. So we got into a very heated conspiracy discussion where my co-teacher walked out and was like, "Why are you talking about this?" And it's, those moments like that you're really on their level, having fun with them, that are just so indescribable and like unforgettable and priceless. Those are the moments that are just so priceless.
Absolutely. And the reason that you were able to have those moments is because you provided a safe space for your students where they felt comfortable enough to have those conversations with you. So I think that's just phenomenal that you were able to take all of that time and really get to know your students and spend quality time with them talking about whatever it was they wanted to talk about at the jungle gym today.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so now let's kind of go forward, Sam. So you're getting ready for your second year of teaching, and do you know what that's going to look like yet?
Unfortunately, I don't. I do know that I will be teaching high school art coming in September, which is a huge jump from second grade. So in a way, I still feel like I'm going into my first year of teaching all over again, but definitely with more under my belt this time. So I know that I will be in a public high school, hopefully with no masks if things keep going as they are going right now. But I'm very excited to be going and actually teaching visual art, which is my jam.
So do you know the size of the high school? Like, do you know what school you're going to be at, or are they placing you once they get all the applicants in?
No, so I'm placed at a high school.
Okay.
It's a fairly large high school. It's probably about middle of the road. My class sizes are going to be around 20, whereas my higher level AP Art Studio may be around 6 to 10.
Those are really
So
nice numbers.
yes, I think it'll be really great. My intro classes will be a little bit bigger, but my higher level art classes will be a little bit smaller. I think it'll really fluctuate between classes.
So do you already have a schedule? Do you know what classes you'll be teaching?
Not yet. I'm still waiting on that from the school. It's still pretty early. Their year is just wrapping up about this week. So I know pretty for certain I'll probably be teaching an intro to art class. Your cover the bases of your requirements level art class, as well as all the way up to AP Art Studio, which is the highest level that the school offers. There's a chance I may be doing some other things in there like media arts and photography, but we will see hopefully very soon.
Are there any other art teachers in the building?
Yes, there's two of us. So we're going to be a dynamic duo this year.
Perfect. That's so awesome. And so with that, do you have an idea of what you need to start prepping this summer? Are you already looking into things, or are you just going to wait until you know which classes you're going to have for sure?
I've started to prep a little bit. So my school offers a set curriculum that they follow for visual arts. So I'm waiting to have that in my hands, but having gone through an art teacher preparation program from my college, I kind of have an idea of the things that I would teach in an intro class, from anywhere from like line and shape and color and your basic elements of art. I've started to mull around ideas, play with materials, to think about ways that I can bring those ideas to life in a more different and exciting way for my students. So I've prepped a little bit. I've done a few samples, but as a full overview of starting lesson plans, I'm going to hold off until I get my schedule.
Absolutely. So with the research that you've done, have you found any really fun activities that you're interested in trying out?
I'm very excited and hoping that I can fit it in. I found a few art teachers that have done this successfully and made human-sized sculptures out of masking tape.
Okay.
And that is a way to like teach installation art and how to activate a space with artwork. So that's something I would love to do with an intro class that maybe feels like they're a little too cool for school when it comes to art, and then whip out this crazy project that gets them excited. So I'm really hoping to do that next year.
That sounds really neat. I hope you can make that work with your students because I think that is definitely something that kids who maybe aren't quite sure if art is for them, they might be like, wow, this is so awesome.
It's something that's really important to me in my art teaching practice is I feel very, very passionately that art is a means for everyone. And your students that come in and don't want to pick up a pencil and don't think they can do art and come in with the classic line that they can't draw a stick figure, that there is a way for them to be engaged with art. And I mean, we could say that about teaching as a whole thing. But for me, when a student comes in like that, it's about finding a means for them to engage with art. I had an art teacher tell me once that everything from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, everything you see in your life was made by an artist. And in thinking about that, I think about like shoe design and clothing design. And those are things that can possibly engage those students that are a little bit more hesitant. So it's something that I think about a lot.
Oh, for sure. Even graphic design. I mean, just looking at our computer screens right now, talking to you, like someone had to design how this computer looks. That is art in itself.
Truly.
Very cool. Okay. So earlier when we were chatting, you told me how you want to make sure that your classroom is inclusive and a safe space for your students. Do you want to tell us how you're going to do that through art as well?
Sure. So art is, in my opinion, one of the most inclusive practices that a person can do. When it comes to a visual art classroom, something that's very important to me when I'm prepping and when I'm lesson planning is that what I am using is just a means for the students to create what they want to create. You will never see me doing a directed drawing in my art classroom. You will never see me doing a project where you can't tell apart what student made what artwork. It's very important to me to leave it as open-ended as possible for students to be able to express themselves and use the materials in ways that they see fit. So when that comes to more accessibility, that comes with talking to students about what materials that they're interested in and what materials may be more out of their comfort zone and which ones are more inside their comfort zone. For example, I'm not going to have a student who has sensory difficulties go start fingerprinting. It's all about finding what works best for my students and finding what means that they can express themselves through art. And it's creating that classroom environment where they can collaborate with each other and they can talk and they can look to the person next to them and say, do you like this? Do you not like this? What can I change? And creating that community to really foster that art making.
I think that's beautiful. And I do believe that when teachers think of inclusivity, sometimes they do forget that access and ability are also included in that. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if there are teachers who don't know a lot about the physical access of art as well, do you have any resources or where did you learn about that? Was it from your classes?
I took a few courses in special education in my master's program. That was something when I was going through a master's program was really important to me, is to find resources and really amazing special educators that could help me elevate my teaching practice. So I would say when it comes to the materials, really doing your research on the materials and messing with them yourself. Research by using your hands is the best kind of research. So when you're using a material, really just finding out the properties and the sensory feelings that come with different materials. And again, knowing your students and knowing what they either really love or really, really have challenges with is the best research that I can recommend.
I think that's great. And so just getting your hands dirty, getting into those supplies, seeing the options that are out there before presenting them to your students, I think that'll really make a big difference. So my next question then is that was a fantastic tip for any teacher, but going from teaching second grade to now transitioning into high school art, for teachers who are teaching elementary or even going into high school, do you have any tips for them that you've just picked up along the way that you felt really made you into the educator that you are as a second year teacher?
I would definitely recommend not taking yourself too seriously. I am very intimidated by high schoolers, but I also am very excited to take my personality and take how excited and passionate I am about art and about education to the classroom, and really bringing that energy that is kind of lost when kids grow up, and hopefully bringing that back. I really would recommend just having fun. We all became teachers for a reason, and it's because we're passionate about it. And there is no shame on being that teacher that is silly and has a good time and really shows that passion through everything we do. As much as high schoolers may, to your face, say that you're too cool for school and like roll your eyes when you sing and dance around the classroom, those are the moments that either material will stick for your kids or they'll just remember it and remember the weird dance you did to explain the elements of art and create memories for them to bring forward.
And that just makes them want to keep coming back to school too, because you're making every single day fun. You're finding that balance between, okay, now we need to learn, but now we're going to learn through this creative movement or whatever it is.
Definitely.
That was such great advice. And so if any teachers want to reach out to you and just chat with you a little bit more, is there any way they can find you online?
Yeah, so I am on TikTok. My TikTok is Miss Miss Angelillo. Illo. So that's my last name, Miss Angelillo. I'm also on Instagram. All of my artwork is there as well at Sam. Again, that same last name, Angelillo .art ART.
Very cool. Well, I do believe that there are going to be art teachers who reach out to you, because I kind of feel like art teachers are few and far between. I don't really interact with them that often. So it was so wonderful to have you on here today, Sam. Thank you so much for taking time to share with the world everything that you have, and just know that you're making a difference. You're doing an amazing job, and I cannot wait to follow your journey and see where year 2 brings you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic day, Sam.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Be sure to tune in to the next episode for more teaching tips to make an impact. Until next time.